And I think that a lot of the information that we receive or that I received during that time was just keep being positive, just keep showing up, be a good girl, like just keep being good. And it's that's not the same thing as being energetically aligned. And what we're radiating is bringing our experience back to us. You can't fake it.
Practical mindfulness that meets you where you are. This is Mindfulness Unscripted. I'm Jon Orsini.
Like every day I get to do exactly what I love. And I'm wondering how in the world this ever happened. Except for the fact that it happened here.
Yeah, you made it happen.
I know. I feel so thankful every day. I mean, every day is not peachy keen. You know, I think that the work that I do can be difficult, but I feels like it gets more and more easy as I continue to take action.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? The more layers I peel away from myself, the more I do it anyway because I've had no choice.
Yeah.
Right? Like I really put myself in a situation where I had to make it happen.
Yeah. That's there's this Zen phrase that I learned. There's this great actor, his name is Rene Auberjonois,
Yeah.
and he was on Star Trek. So if anybody who's a fan of Star Trek would definitely know him. I mean, he's just a great, legendary actor. And I got to do this movie with him. That was never released actually, but that's a whole other story. But it was such a great experience, and he was just like and he would say, leap empty-handed into the void. And it's just, but it's, wow, easier said than done. You know what I mean? He would acknowledge, of course, he was just, but he was, yeah, he was a great guy. And so it was cool advice as an actor, because, you end up surprising yourself. You end up doing things that you didn't know you were capable of.
Right.
You are willing to step away from the known and step into the to unknown territory. So anyways, kudos to you for creating this whole new phase of life for yourself in Florida with all the wellness practices that you guide and everything. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels good. And I think that it's something that we can all do, like living. I feel like I've always sort of lived on the edge of stuff. Like if I've wanted something, it's expansion. So if I've wanted to do something, I've actually placed myself in situations where like I'm okay with being completely uncomfortable. Like I'm okay with it. And I think a lot of it comes from, and I know a lot of it comes from my past experience of like trauma. And a lot of that thing happens where I was just uncomfortable for so long and in such a terrible situation that I'm like, nothing can like really phase me now. And so you can take that one way or you can and use it, or you can take it another way. And for me, it became a point where it was just like, it's not like I don't care, because I do care, but I thrive in stressful situations. And those stressful, or what some might call or label as stressful, are actually, to me, I feel like situations that help me to expand, because I know that they're more in alignment with what I want next.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not like I'm doing silly things where it's just, being foolish or being irresponsible. It's, look, I really like, I'm called to do something different or be somewhere different or create something different. So I need to put myself in that place and maybe like rip out, you said it to me one time, burn the boats. Leave no choices. Like there's no other choice other than I'm either going to fail. Failure is good. Or I'm going to get to the other side of it. But I can't have, if you have too many choices that make you comfortable, and keep you where you are, I don't think that's necessarily like, I mean, that's kind of judgy to say it's not a good thing. And I don't want to, like, it's not about a judgment situation, but if you're trying to create something different,
Yeah.
you have to take those leaps and those.
Yeah. It makes me think of how that phrase pressure makes diamonds. And the neat thing is like all this stuff, I definitely want to talk about how this parallels to breathwork very much, because we come up against our edges, and there's one or two ways that could go, and I'm going to get into that. But this idea of pressure makes diamonds is just so much easier said than done. And like you're saying, putting yourself in these situations intelligently, like not just doing something dumb and risky, doing something that's on the edge of your comfort zone because it's moving toward the person you are, like the person you're stepping into, the person you're becoming. So it's like, well, if the person I'm becoming is in great shape, for instance, well, guess what? This morning I'm going to make myself uncomfortable and get up earlier and go to the gym or like whatever the thing is. Like we've all heard those kind of things like that, but that's a perfect real world example. And also, I want to mention here too that you have kids. It's really important to mention that because I know on my end, it's been easier to make these leaps and take these risks, if you want to call it that. Although again, it's like hard to find languaging because it's like, it feels like a calling more than a risk. Feels like something like, well, I guess I'll see what happens versus being like, this is the direction I know I need to go. It's just a question of, will I cut the cord from anything that would hold me back? Or the idea that if you have a plan B, you'll probably take it, you know? Like if there's a escape route when things get tough, depending on your temperament, you're probably going to take it. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't have systems in place. And the reason I mentioned that you have kids, because it's incredible, first of all, that you follow your heart, you follow your intuition. You also are practical, pragmatic, a great mother. You have awesome kids that are super successful. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's important because I know for me, sometimes I catch myself being like, well, I could say, take the leap, follow your heart, but it's because I'm the only one who struggles if something doesn't quote unquote go right, or if I again quote unquote fail, because it's, failure is information on how to proceed. But the thing is, if you have people depending on you, that takes on a whole new shape. So do you have anything to share in that realm for people who do have kids, responsibilities, how you've been able to continue to follow your heart, continue to grow and maximize your life in this wellness industry and following your heart while you also have kids and you take care of everything?
I love this question. And I told my son recently, who is his heart is in soccer. He is a pro athlete. Like he is a pro soccer athlete. And I say that because maybe he hasn't reached that yet. That's a possibility. That's one of the possibilities in this infinite realm of all things that are possible for folks. But I always told my kids there is no plan B. There isn't one, because when you have a plan B, you're giving yourself a way out and you're not believing fully in what your capabilities are. And then I also have to think about myself, like what are the standards that I put myself in, or what are the parameters or the box that I put myself in as a mother, and like what that looks like, because that can look like so many different things, and whether or not I don't know, I love this question in so many ways, and I don't think I'm articulating things the way that I truly want to. It's just, I'm a person. I'm a human too. My kids don't belong to me. They come through me with their own soul calling in this world. And I always knew and thought that my job as their mother was to make sure that they knew how to access their own intuition and their own ability and their belief in themselves more than anything else. Like I could live in a tent and be a good mother. Like I could, maybe that's what I choose. It's like, what are the standards of society and what society is telling me that I need to do? Maybe I want to be like totally off the grid and like pull myself away from devices and all kinds of things. But like my whole, like the way I always felt about my kids and how I lived my own life was just, I'm following my heart. And I'm being brave and I'm being courageous and I'm following my heart. And when you do that with faith, you're not going to fall, because you jump off, not a real building, but you jump in knowing that I believe in myself. And if I pass that along to them, and you might not know the next step, but if you know where you're going, that next step will reveal itself. If you give yourself a B plan, well, if this doesn't work out, then you truly don't have that faith. And that faith and that belief is what these synchronicities, what these new people, these new experiences, what reveal themselves to you, because you have faith, and so there they are. And then you naturally walk that path anyway. That's the magic, I think, of deliberate creation, of just knowing without having to be attached to any type of detail. I don't need to have an actual plan, and many people will call that irresponsible. But my life's working out pretty dang good. And there's a lot of things that I didn't really actually know were going to come into my experience. And those are normally welcomed things, So it's just, I think it's just a different mindset, different way to look at things. And my kids don't belong to me. They belong to God, the universe, and
Yeah.
they have their own way of being and moving through the world.
I think I find it really interesting when you say that that you didn't have a plan or don't have a plan. I find that so fascinating because I think that's so relative to how an individual thinks.
Mm.
Like the idea of a plan is pretty wide ranging, and depending on your tolerance for uncertainty or just how your mind operates. Because in my mind, the way that I perceived this big shift that you made, or it's not even that it was a big shift, it was like a continual stepping in to who I've known you to be throughout these years, right? A continual stepping into that. You took this next step, this next leap, and to me, the plan from the outside seemed it seemed like there was a plan in place, like you knew exactly where you were going. So it's interesting. So in terms of the logistics, depending on how your mind works, you want to be responsible, you want to take care of that. So it's just interesting to hear you say you didn't feel like you had a plan, but you knew where you were going. Because in my mind, you knew exactly where you were going, which was the plan. Like the plan seemed very clear to me from the beginning, and then you just stepped into it. So that's just funny how we perceive ourselves and what we're doing versus how others perceive us and what we're doing. Because I would have, if someone was like, "Hey, did Michelle have a plan?" I'd be like, "Fuck yeah, she had a plan." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you
No.
know, and-
No, not a clue. I was supposed to be in Sarasota,
Mm,
and then that fell through. And it's just so interesting. But again, I think it's like it goes back to a lot of the work that I've done. There's
yeah.
like the law of reversibility, knowing where I want to be, but also like the important thing of knowing what I want that to feel like, what I see for myself, and then also matching the person that actually gets that. And that's a person that has to be brave. Not knowing and having uncertainty can stunt a lot of people. But I would say to myself, who cares? I could always begin, like that's the yoga, right? Begin again, come back to the breath to begin again. Like these practices that we talk about and that, I've learned as a teacher and then actually applied. I'm yogaing all the time off the mat more than I am on the mat
Mhm.
because there are times where I say, oh, it's coming back to the breath, remembering who I am, who I chose to be, also understanding that who I choose to be in my action, my behavior, my belief, and my characteristics and how I walk through the world is going to reflect in my experience. It's not the other way around.
Mm,
So I have an incredible amount of trust.
yeah.
And every morning I wake up and I'm like, okay, so, all right, so I know what I want, what I'm planning next. Who is the woman? Who is the woman that has that already? Oh, these are the things that I have to do.
Mhm.
And that's how you like quantum leap and take like massive risks and create massive change in such a short period of time is because you be before you have. So
Mm,
you don't need to worry. You don't need to worry. Like, what are you worried about? You can just do it again. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
yeah.
It's not. I could always just go back home. I could go stay with my mom and spend some time with her. That would be lovely. Like, where you're just, you get this short little life, this short little parentheses. And I feel like it's so disheartening to see so many people not following their heart and like what calls to them and just living the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to put the work in where your heart is takes real courage. And there's that thing, fortune favors the bold. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so many sayings around this, but the idea that you just have a direction and you just keep walking, and that what was it, Rumi? As you start to walk on the way appears. So
Yeah.
that's where the faith comes in, whether it's the literal faith in something religious or spiritual, or just the faith that when you are connected with where you're headed, when you walk on the way, and we all know what that is. It's a vague concept
Right.
to try to explain, I think, like even hearing myself say it, but it's like as I'm saying it, I feel what it feels like. I mean, that's how even we initially met at Kripalu. I started walking on the way at a certain period of in my life, and then that brought me there.
Right.
And yeah, so it's just amazing to watch how this is all unfolded for you and how quickly. Like that's it's really incredible. And then and then also too, I want to say too, just one more thing. You were talking about your son playing soccer. And
Mhm.
just to be clear, like he's not just like just a casual backyard, let me kick the ball around. Like that's an example of taking something that you love and being exceptional. Like, he's an exceptional soccer player. And so that's like just an example of saying, like, all right, if you get too hung up on, well, obviously you want to do well in school and all that. Like, I'm not talking about all that, but I'm just saying, like, when you really love something and you commit your entire heart to your heart's path, like, things will unfold. And the reason why that one keeps coming up for me is because one of my family members, his son similarly just loved soccer, was all about it growing up, played at a very competitive level, and then became a coach at a very competitive level. And again, it doesn't always manifest in necessarily like the way that you think it does, but it's all in the lane. When you're on the way, you might end up somewhere where you didn't expect, which is why goals can be really tricky, which is what I want to talk about next with you. Like, why goals are so important to know which way you're headed, but
Right.
they also can be a total catch-22, because if you keep yourself fixated on a concept when you're missing the energetic value of where all of your heart and soul and pure energy force is moving towards,
Yeah.
you even if you achieve that goal, if it's a concept versus where your heart's moving, it's almost probably going to make you more miserable when you achieve it. And we've all seen versions of that with, like, success or fame or whatever it is. So what do you think, or what might you say to the idea of pursuing a goal, but also holding it lightly so that you're never taking a misstep to achieve something that's actually misaligned? Like, how do you stay aligned while you move in the direction? Do you have thoughts, feelings on that?
Yeah, I love this question too. I love your questions.
Mm,
My thought about that is it's again that coming back to yoga, that sense of attachment.
mm,
If you're attaching to something, like you can have, there's got to be a level of flexibility, I think, within that, and a level of of sitting with yourself, tapping into that voice of what is true and real and what is moving you more toward what you truly want. Like, I think it's nice to have a set point. You have a set point, a goal, but you also have to have a level of flexibility. One of my favorite teachers always told me about flexibility is your strength. So we can be moving towards something, but we don't have to have attachment to details or even end result. Like, you don't want to, veer too far off your path, I suppose. Always checking in with self, but it's like the palm tree is the strongest tree, the strongest tree, because of the amount of flexibility it has. It can withstand winds, hurricane winds, bend all the way to the ground and not break, because its strength is in the flexibility that it has. And so I think that with goals, like, yes, and ask yourself, this is the inquiry off the mat. This is the inquiry to say, is this real and true about, like, is this truly what I want? Or am I kind of pushing toward this goal because people will think I'm a failure? Or I told people I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it. Like, we live in a society too that says, and I fall victim to that. I've done so many things and people are like, why do you keep changing your mind? I'm like, why not? Like, why not? I don't need to be a doctor for 20 years and then retire. Like, I don't need to do this for 30 years because I said I was going to do it. If something changes and shifts, that's the beauty, I feel, of being a creator in this world and experiencing it in so many different ways, following my intuition. But I think that that's where you pause. And there's a difference between reaction and responding. That's where you take these pauses to really kind of, and I had this happen to me recently because I had, been doing something which I wasn't comfortable in. And so what I said was, okay, my normal response is I'm out, right? And I can be, which self-awareness is power. I can be very reactionary because I'm fire sign, like I'm Aries. I'm just like, yeah, let's go. But I also notice within that, sometimes I'm missing kind of what I need to learn or what I need to soften, and maybe be a part of the experience. So what I did was I gave myself a month in this to really kind of be in that inquiry. Is this something that's moving me toward what I truly want in my life as a whole? Or am I just a little uncomfortable and I'm trying to move out of the space? So I think that that's a really important thing. So are your goals, and if something comes into your experience where it might be taking you off that road and giving you a different opportunity, is this something that's kind of moving me away from what I want, or is this something that's serving me more in a different way? Like, I think that those questions are really important to ask. because like, and I also, while I was sitting in that experience for that whole month, I learned a whole new set of skills that I never would have had. Now, this opportunity that I had wasn't for me, and I did end up, leaving. However, it taught me a whole heck of a lot about myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, just being in the inquiry. And
Yeah.
like we can come back to apply this to the yoga again, like being in the shape. Like here I was in an asana for a whole month of something that was uncomfortable, that had an edge. Maybe it was like a chair pose, right? And so I was just like, I want to get out of this place. But let me also kind of sit into it for a minute and notice what I'm thinking within it. Is this coming from subconscious programming? Is this coming from something that I'm used to doing?
Yeah.
Or is this coming from my heart, my intuition that says, no, this isn't for you, move into a different direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. And coming back to that reactive versus responsive,
Mm.
and even tying to what you had said earlier, which is a point I was going to make about what breathwork has really helped me do, but even more so than breathwork, more so, well, I won't say more so than breathwork, but in a similar way, and then is running.
Oh.
So running even more than yoga, but I'm going to tie it all together to what you're saying, which is you had mentioned being uncomfortable, or mentioned being comfortable within discomfort, or not necessarily comfortable, but like maintaining within discomfort. And maybe you reference some things from the past where you're like, I went through that and I made it through, and it made me, if it, you transform because of it, you grow because of it, and you're like, okay, so I can sit in some discomfort here. And so what I find interesting, and this came up in the program, I guided a program this weekend with Jess Fry at Kripalu, right? Breathwork and sound bath.
Mhm.
And this came up this weekend where I thought about this metaphor with running, which, you talk about staying in a yogic posture. And part of what makes it yoga versus stretching, for instance, is that you really, or what even could make stretching yoga or whatever, could make running yoga, is that you start to experience discomfort and then you observe it and how that translates to our life. So the metaphor I used with running was when you get into running distances, of course, as you start to run further and further or faster and faster, you're going to start to experience pain. It's inevitable. You're going to start to experience some form of pain, definite discomfort. And then it becomes a personal inquiry to say, first of all, am I going to keep going or am I going to stop? That's the first thing.
Mhm.
The other thing is this the kind of pain? Is this the kind of discomfort that leads to growth and transformation?
Right.
Or is this the kind of pain and discomfort that's an injury that if I keep running on it, it's going to set me back 6 months or a year where I'll just be laid up on the couch because I'm being an idiot and I keep just pounding on the wrong thing, right? And
Yes.
that's why these conversations can go on, because ultimately that question can really only be answered, certainly when it first comes up, by you
Yeah.
while it's happening. And the way that you get more attuned to that is through yogic practices,
Mhm.
whether that's yoga, or in my case, again, I learned more about that experience from running. And then as it pertains to breath work, similar thing. We start to push against or start to explore around our edges, and it can bring up unfamiliar feelings. Now, sometimes those unfamiliar feelings are being flooded with feelings of love or feelings of gratitude or
Mhm.
feelings of bliss. But because they're uncomfortable, we may run from them or we may shut them off because they're uncomfortable, not taking, and we're being reactive in that sense, versus being willing to sit with discomfort, not to torture ourselves, certainly not to tolerate any bullshit from ourselves or anyone else. But
Mhm.
because if we were reactive and we just immediately move at the sign of discomfort, we never have the moment to actually find out, is this the type of discomfort that's going to help me grow and transform? Or is this the type of discomfort that's going to hack me down at the knees? And the thing is, you want to ultimately assess that and figure that out. But you need that moment with yourself, right? And it could be a fraction of a second, but that moment to really sink into it, find that moment of yoga, if you want to call it that, where you can assess, what is this? And that's the difference of responsiveness versus reactivity, that we can do it to support ourselves.
Ah, I love it. And we can go a step further with that and decide whether or not that's moving us more toward alignment of what we're wanting to receive. So when we get into some of the deliberate creation pieces, in order to have a different experience entirely, you need to be a different person. So you're going to have to try on and move through different behaviors and thoughts and beliefs that you might not have had before. So those are also invitations to experience something different because of who you are being, not only in how you're being in the world, but also how you're thinking and feeling. And you know, that's going to create a different experience for you because, you know, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, one of my favorite teachers and mentors, always said, your personality creates your personal reality. So you know, a lot of the work that I do is about, you know, identity shifting and really understanding what it's like to actually step into a different person to create a different experience. It's reverse engineering. So if you want, we get what we're conscious of. So all of these practices are so beautiful no matter where you are, because then you can decide, am I being the person that has this thing that I want in the end, whether that's being healthy or, you know, a new business or, you know, being location independent or like whatever it might be. The only reason why you don't have it is because you're not it.
Mm.
And that's not judgy. Like, I'm not like saying anything because I think that all experiences are beautiful experiences. Like there's there's literally no judgment. Do what you want, man. Like have what you want. But the thing is that there's so much action taking and there's so much, you got to do this, this, and this, and here's all the to-do lists and all the things. And there's not a lot of talk about being energetically a different person completely and entirely. And also everything that's going to fall away from you as a result of that you can't be attached to. You could lose a job. You could lose a spouse or like you know, a partner or a spouse. You could lose, you know, friends. Because they're like, who the hell are you? And it's because you're connecting to a different experience and you're still holding on to the old self.
That's really interesting. And it made me think, if I could get words around this, it made me think about when you decide, you may think you want something.
Mm-hmm.
Like say you want I don't know, say you want a Ferrari. I don't know, just pick something random. And then the idea of being the person who has a Ferrari to start to move in that direction. What's so interesting, and this maybe ties to the idea around goals and how they can be helpful, but they could also be a distraction depending on how you're looking at them, is if the goal is the Ferrari and then you start being the person who would have a Ferrari and that doesn't feel aligned, then what do you what is it about the Ferrari? Like I've heard it put something like this. What is it about? Okay, what feeling were you expecting to have in the Ferrari? Because if you have to be a certain way or focus on certain things to get that car as the goal, and then you start being that way and it just doesn't, and you're in tune with yourself and it just doesn't feel aligned, well, then it's like, okay, so maybe it's not the car at all. What does that car represent to you? And like maybe again, it might sound cheesy, but just like journal about it. What does a Ferrari make me feel? What is it?
Yeah.
And like get underneath it, because there's the thing itself and then there's the energetic value of the thing. And I feel like when we think we want the thing itself, we might not realize the reason we don't have it sometimes is because we actually don't align with the energetic value because we don't want to, right? Like that's a thing too. Whereas when we actually are aligned in the energetic value that we want to be, we may end up with other things, like the outward manifestation may look different than the thing we initially thought we wanted. Is that, you see what I'm seeing?
I do. That makes sense. And then I think that again invites that sense, like you're saying, like take a pause for a moment and really kind of go in, like, what was that even about? Was that about like me? Was that ego driven where I want status because I want, you know, like be real and true to yourself, like really go in and dig? Or is it just that you really do want one? And you also have to understand that that might not feel like you because you don't have it yet. So you might actually, like I had to do, take a little bit of time to decide whether or not, like try it on, because you're going to have to do different things to be a person that has that. And then do those things feel in alignment with like who you truly are? Like, does that, like you're saying, like, does that feel, because it's not going to feel comfortable or like you in the very beginning anyway.
Right.
It's not. And then what are you doing to get there? So it's this constant It's this constant observer. It's you are observing your whole self through your life, and inviting kind of that question of, is this real?
Yeah.
Is this true? Do I really believe this? Who told me that? Like, who told me I couldn't have that? And maybe I think that people that have Ferraris are like scumbags. And then my subconscious programming is saying, you can't have that because you're also going to be like visit all of those. Like sit down with those selves of you to really understand, like, where does that actually come from? Because if you were born somewhere different with a different set of parents and a different set of circumstances, or maybe no parents or whatever, you would think differently. And that's just the beauty of being human, is that yes, we can choose who we are right now in this very moment and just get working on that. And it doesn't matter where you came from.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And it makes me, you just like realize by reflecting that back and then everything you just built on, it was like, oh yeah, perfect example, right? So say with that car, you start to move towards it and you feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
That's that exact moment to check in with that running metaphor. This, again, rather than reacting saying, oh, then that means I didn't want the Ferrari, I wanted something else. It's like, well, wait a minute, inquire. Does it mean you are becoming something or being some way that genuinely does not align with your heart? Or does it mean you're uncomfortable because you're stepping into new territory, which is a more expansive version of you? Because they'll both feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the only person who could tell you if it's heart aligned or not is you.
Yeah.
And that's where the inquiry of yoga, meditation, the observer, right? Oh, and there's one more. There's a very practical metaphor that I love, which I learned through Zen meditation before I even got deeply into breath work. When I was like 18 years old, I started getting interested in meditation, Zen. And it was a really simple thing, but it had very profound implications, all related to exactly what we're talking about, which was when you are sitting meditation, Zen is inherently really simple, and it's in the way that it's usually guided, like the technique. And so when you're sitting meditation, if you notice that your nose itches, what happens if you don't scratch it? And the point is, again, not to torture yourself, not to be like, oh my gosh, but to, even if it's like a moment, an imperceptible amount of time, I can't tell you what that amount of time is, because eventually, yeah, just, I mean, if it still itches, just scratch your nose. But the time that you take to develop the type of person who could be sitting somewhere, notice that your nose itches before you even react to it. Notice what it feels like if you don't scratch it and you just notice it. And again, this sounds so almost like moronically simple, but it has implications for every part of life, everything we're talking about, stepping into a new version of you, everything else like that, because it develops, such a simple thing develops that seat of the observer. And then whenever you do decide to scratch your nose, that's a response rather than a reaction. It's
Love.
like, okay, I'm going to choose to respond. I'm going to scratch my nose because I'm ready to. But I was able to sit there and just notice the discomfort without immediately reacting to it. And just because then, if we do that, we're just getting pushed around by life. Like, we don't have as much autonomy, because every little thing, every obnoxious person on the street, every, stupid comment on the internet, like whatever it is, we're just getting pushed around by it. It's like, oh, you want to let other people and all these circumstances control you? Or do you want to find yourself in the scheme of this universe and say, like, where do I have autonomy? How do I step into the person that I want to be? And that's through responsiveness rather than reactivity.
Love, love, love. They're all the edges. Like all of those are the edges. And that's what's so beautiful about the practice, is that, I'll never forget, like, kind of the realization as this study in metaphysics and some quantum physics, and then also yoga at the same time, like realizing, like, within the postures, within the shapes, as I call them, I was like, wow, it's like the same thing. I really want to get out of this warrior too. Like, I've been in it for too long. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'm sitting in it and I'm noticing my legs, and I'm feeling like it became more and more of like, and then I didn't even realize that then I was doing that in the world. I was like, I really want to get out of this. Like, wow, that person's doing this to me, or this is happening, or that is happening. That's uncomfortable. And I would be like, I'd be more in the inquiry of what it was about, and kind of like asking myself, like, I wonder what this means. And like, how can I act? And then when I started realizing that I actually get to create my life through each and every response and choice and belief and thought that I have, that became even more important, because then I decided, within the discomfort, and it's not always discomfort, it's also wonderful things too, but the discomfort, I think, is the hardest part. But then within that, I was like, okay, so who's the Michelle, the future Michelle, and how would she respond to this?
Mhm.
And then, then everything, just things began to shift in different ways. Then you find less of that and more joy. So we get what we focus on. So when I found less of kind of the disturbances and the annoyances, I like find joy everywhere. Like we get what we focus on, we get what we place our attention toward. And I can form a perception about any single interaction I have with anyone. I can make it a negative one. It could appear to be negative, or I can make it a positive one. I can find compassion for someone and say, wow, like Dr. Wayne Dyer said, you squeeze an orange. What do you get out of it? Like it's under pressure. You don't get lemon juice. You get orange juice each and every time. So when people are under an incredible amount of pressure, we're in those points where it's just like they're angry. Like that's what's kind of like coming out. And it made me feel actually more more of a sense of connection and compassion instead of anger toward people, because that's what they're holding inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you spoke about this too, like just letting things kind of like reacting to things, that's default. Like you're creating by default. You're letting your outside circumstances determine what your world looks like. And then you become a victim to circumstance, so really having control. And it's not about toxic positivity, because I definitely was like toxically positive at one point, because the things that I was saying, but the way that I was feeling was very different. So I was just out there like saying the words, like the affirmations, but inside, I definitely was not in congruence with what I was putting out there. So it's not about being toxic in a positive, like in that toxic positivity way. It's really about reframing, reshaping, but then also kind of connecting and making sure that you're in alignment with what you're wanting to create and experience in the world, because we have that power. Like we have that power. Like before I go into anything, like I'm going to go to the grocery store shortly, and I'm going to do this because we're talking about it, and I'm going to be like, before I walk in, taking a moment to pause, and I'm going to say, I'm going to see smiles everywhere. And I'm going to like go in and I'm going to notice, and I'm going to text you later, but I'm going to notice like all the smiles and be like smiling, smiling, smiling. Like, and I'm going to have like it doesn't need to be in this experience where it's like, I've made $1 million, or I've done this, or I've finally arrived. It's everyday joy, everyday moments that we get to create, and that's the beauty, I think, of like living a life in connection with self and with source.
Beautiful. Yeah, and there was something, so going off that again with that discomfort thing, and when it comes to the smiles, right? If we are in a state where either we're hyper focused on something and we're grinding it out to try to get towards something, we may actually be like, like, I'll just use the car again, like we're grinding it out to get towards that, to get that car. But what is it about the car? Maybe because it brings me more joy and liberation and freedom. And it's like, well, you're grinding it out so hard that you have blinders on to the joy, liberation, and freedom that's all around you right now. And again, you might be in a very specific situation where you're not feeling that, and that's where the toxic positivity comes in. If you're always just like, no, I'm always enjoying liberation. It's like, well, maybe it's not that. But the willingness to be uncomfortable in that case, to say, you know what? What if I drop the burden of quote unquote grinding it out? I need to go to the grocery store right now. What if I think about joy, liberation, and freedom as I walk into this grocery store, and notice again the smile, like notice, because I'm going to extrapolate, like you said, like what you focus on expands. And so what if I start everywhere I go, if the car is about joy, liberation, and freedom, what about everywhere I go in with that frame of mind and just see where I can see it around me. And even if it's just little inklings, like you see one little smile, that's an inkling, but then you smile back and then that smile gets bigger, and you're like very practically generating more of the thing in your life by looking for the inklings, the seeds of it, and then essentially watering those seeds everywhere you go, and then it starts sprouting up all around you. I think that's really powerful. And sometimes that discomfort could be like, sometimes we think we want joy, liberation, and freedom, for instance, but we have a resistance to it based on what's happened to us in the past. Maybe there was a time we felt joy, liberation, and freedom, and someone broke our heart,
Right.
and then so we may have this conscious or unconscious that might be the discomfort, is our willingness to say, yes, I want joy, liberation, and freedom, but am I actually okay to sit with the discomfort of letting myself feel that good?
Yeah.
You
Of
know?
deserving that, of like being worthy of receiving that.
Yeah.
But I think, and again, like a lot of the folks and the like people that I work with, there's this, and I love therapy and I'm not knocking anything. I think do what feels good to you to help you to, be the best version of yourself, to be happy, to move through life with joy. But there's a lot of digging up of like why I might feel a certain way, or like, okay, what did my parents do to me for me to feel this way, or why don't I feel worthy? But the more you practice the essence of what worthiness feels like, it won't matter,
Mm.
because eventually you're going to resonate. Like we're energy beings, so there's really no need to dig things up to figure it out to then begin. You just need to be it. So there's plenty of things that have happened to me. I don't remember when I was 3, and I do know that I was raised by parents and family structure that that did the best that they could. And we've all made mistakes. I've certainly made mistakes with my own kids and things. And I would never want anybody to be a victim of their circumstance, depending upon but because it takes away from the power that you have to be you're a creator. And so what we need to do is, if we're recognizing those types of things, like maybe I'm not feeling like I deserve this, or joy, or liberation, or freedom, the more you practice the vibration of that, the more that will lessen. You'll start to resonate more with it, and then you'll start to become it, and you'll start seeing it being reflected back to you. There's this the law of correspondence: as within, so without. So as below, as above, so below. So what we're cultivating inside eventually will become our outer experience as a reflection, but we don't practice. So what does a person who's worthy of receiving whatever it might be that you're wanting to experience, what does that? That's why it's very important to go work backwards. And I do this thing called the quantum identity blueprint, which is like, depending upon what you want to manifest, what you want to bring into your life, like who is that person? You need to know what she says, what she wears, how she thinks, what she believes, and you have to be that in order to receive. You don't be that after you've already gotten the thing. You be it before. Like that's how you manipulate energy. That's how you create. And you have to show up every day for yourself. Every morning I have an energetic architecture practice, is what I call it. And it's like literally, what am I doing? Like I have something that I'm creating for December, a very specific thing that I like, that I'm bringing into my life December 1st. It's already happened. I mean, time is not linear. So I already know it's there. Now I need to be the person that gets it. So then I write like my I am statement. I write like, as I'm sitting there in my December experience, like all the things I'm feeling, what I've done, the changes I've made. And then I write exactly who I am at the bottom. And it's not who I am right now, but there are things that I know, like, oh, this is what I'm doing. So what I'll do is, as I notice, as I'm moving through my day, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't do that anymore. I do this. You're changing your energy. You're connecting to something different. That's how you make fast changes. And you literally have to not look at what you've already created, because it's already done. You already manifested it. Like this is old news. You and me, like this is old news. We created this already. Like we're already like, it's a vibration that's already been cultivated, and we created it. It's all, and so much of our focusing on what we have right now in this very hot moment, instead of focusing on where we're going and who we have to be there. So I grew up Roman Catholic, and if there's so many things in the Bible, I feel like it's a metaphysical book more than, I mean, we could really get into that or not get into it, but I just love the different interpretations that we can experience in life, like of all of them. And one of the things that there was a story about Lot's wife, and I think, and I could be getting it kind of wrong, but I think the town was on fire, and God instructed Lot's wife not to look back, or she would turn into a pillar of salt, and she did. So many of us, what we're doing is we're looking back, and we're recreating the same thing, and we're staying stuck, and we're turning to that pillar of salt. You can't look back. You can't look at what you've already created. You've got to look forward.
Talk about burning the boats.
Yeah.
Because again, to me, obviously, just to be very clear, like in the context of us having that conversation, it wasn't about, that's very different than burning bridges. right? So it's not about like, it's not let me like torch all my relationships behind me or anything like that. Um, unless those relationships are like really toxic or they're very unhealthy for you and all that stuff, in which case, yes, burn the shit out of that. Um, but the idea of burning the boats, meaning you're going, I'm stepping into who I know myself to be. That's the interesting thing too about you saying like I am statements about
Mhm.
the, if I feel like, again, when you're aligned with the energetic value as opposed to an external concept, because the external concept may be an anchor and it may be aligned with the energetic value, but just put it, I guess I'll just put a pin in the external concept or manifestation for a second. The energetic value, when you sit down and you write like I am, and it's a projection of what you're ready to step into, I would almost, I don't know how to say this better, but I would argue that is who you are.
Mhm.
The only reason you're maybe not that, in quotes, in this moment is because you have conditioning from past trauma, past hurt, past stress, past cultural conditioning, past enforced family values or something someone told you in a relationship. So the thing that you're writing, like I'm manifesting this by saying I am this, it's coming because that's truth from your heart. When it is truth from your heart, that's why I'm saying put a pin in the external thing. Like I'm saying, just the energetic value. It's already there because it's actually who you are. It's not even who you're like you're, yes, you are becoming that person, but you're becoming that person by dropping the shit that's been in the way.
Mm.
You know, I even think I've said this before. Like I sometimes I wonder, I think I've said this to you before. We talked about this. You know, we oftentimes think of manifestation as creating something, absolutely. But then you also mentioned how, and you also mentioned how time, in a sense, is not linear, or I could say, what if time isn't linear? And I wonder sometimes if when we are sitting in a quiet moment, right, whether it's meditation or whether it's nature or whether we're vision boarding or whatever it is, and we get this vision of something that just resonates like deep into our heart and our soul. And it might be an external thing, like we see a car, a house, a boat, like whatever, a partner. Like you see someone or something, and it just resonates deep in your soul. I wonder sometimes if it's that then we got quiet enough so we got into a space where we could create what we want, I'll say in quotes, or it's that we got quiet enough, landed on a wavelength where we recognize how time isn't linear and we see something that's already there for us when we live in attunement with our heart. You know, like that
Yeah.
maybe there's different wavelengths, and depending on which one we drop into, like when we drop into that heart-centered wavelength, we actually see our own future in those moments.
Right.
See what I mean? Like it's
I
already
do.
there. It's just us walking toward it and dropping the baggage, dropping the bullshit, burning the boats, the old stories, right?
I know. Who gets to tell us who we are? Like, if you think about it, like the first 7 years of your life, you're in theta, so you're in a state of hypnosis, and all you're doing is downloading your program. And so essentially, if that's the truth, then that means the rest of your life you're living someone else's life. Like who gets to actually like who like oh, wait, what? I didn't get to decide what I think about politics. Like I didn't even, and you think about we don't really think about it. I think we are now a lot more than we were before, but like I think we're much more open to that idea now, but before we never really did. We just kind of followed along. And speaking of frequencies, like yes, 100%, we get to tune in. I mean, our frequency, like we're basically a receptor. We're receiving. It's like you can tune into different radio stations. We can tune into different experiences, including tuning into what's really calling to us, and when we're creating those quiet moments for ourselves, that's when that really comes out. And then do we take action on it, or do we just kind of leave it in an ethereal space and be like, oh yeah, it's good for someone but not for me?
Mhm.
Like you really think about it, like it's magnificent to me that we live in this unbelievable world of experience, like
Mhm.
that we get to have all of these different experiences. And one of the things that I love, that's I can't remember where I heard it, was that being just energy. So I can't remember where I heard this. I actually remember trying to go back to it and I couldn't find it. And I thought, oh, that was meant just for me. Like God like gave that to me, that he took it off the world because I can't find where I found that before. But energy, God, whatever you want to call it, gets to experience life through us. All of these different, contrasting experiences, like these blissful moments, these not so blissful moments, all of them welcome, all of them, you know, gifts of being human. But the greatest part is that we get to actually choose what we're going to experience. Like I think Rumi said too, you can take a drop out of the ocean, but you can't take the whole ocean out of the drop. Like we're a part of that. It's powerful. Like we are a part of that. And how much are we living in boxes that others have formed for us and that we've formed for ourselves? And how much are we living from a space of like true alignment?
I realize that, that's one of my biggest missions with breath work is by the breath really cycling through like that. It expands your life force, your feeling of what it is to be alive. It expands that, right? Like if forms of depression or lethargy or whatever it is makes you feel deadened or stagnant, breath, when we choose to cycle it through, creates this expansiveness. And when it does that, it's expanding the container of who we think we know ourselves to be, And so it's offering so much more. So based on that, there were two other things that I want to mention here. And one of them is around conflict, right? So you talked about we talked about choosing different wavelengths or lanes. And of course, as it pertains to reactivity versus responsiveness. And conflict's an interesting one because also, like, I think about this sometimes in the context of partnership, certainly in family relationships, where we love people, the most important, I mean, everywhere is important to communicate well and lovingly, but especially with those we love the most. Like nothing, it's so heartbreaking when a family relationship fractures over an emotionalized argument about something that should be logistical in a sense, if that makes sense. I'll just leave that one there. But the point is
Right.
that when even if someone comes at us from a heightened state that's maybe not heart aligned with what they really mean or whatever it is, right? And then we meet them there and we come back with that, and it just creates this fracture in a relationship. I think so often how when we can, again, we're all human, we all have our limits, but when we can be in a space of responsiveness, it's not foolproof. It's not every time. Sometimes you come up against someone who's just so stuck in a dysregulated place that you just, no matter how you respond, your best choice is to just walk away. There's no doubt about that. But as it pertains to how we're talking about creating our experience, is I find so interesting how many versions of life we could live if in every experience we realize that it's almost overwhelming that we have almost infinite options in how to respond. And again, if a person keeps giving us the same bullshit, like in the example of conflict or like just not good energy, at some point you just walk away for sure. You protect yourself. You have boundaries for sure. That goes without, I hope goes without saying, or like guys, yeah, obviously. But when someone comes at us with a little something, if we just say, okay, they're coming at me with a little something. Well, what happens if I bring a little bit of this in here, like as a choice of responsiveness, like maybe make a little joke to like lighten the thing. And then all of a sudden the person like wakes up into presence and turns on a dime and is like, oh my God, right. Like it just brought humor to it, right? Like that we have not every time, but most of the time with most people, we have so many options if we just take that fraction of a moment to be responsive rather than reactive. We could create such a different environment in the context of our relationships. And I think it can improve everything we're talking about, just can improve communication and it's just so important. So anyways, that was a side note I wanted to circle back on. And then one more.
I love that. I love that, John. I'll just add one more thing to that, just because like it comes all back to intention. Another teacher of mine talks about segment intention. So before we're stepping into anything new, like before we're stepping onto the mat, into the grocery store experience, or I'm coming home to my family, taking just a moment to form an intention within that. Like when I walk into my home and I'm going to be with my family now, and I have 4 kids and my husband's there, and it's going to be dinner time, and I have this is my intention is to come in with peace and love and gratitude. And who is that woman, and what does she look like when she walks in the door? When you're anchored to an intention, within any shape that you're moving through in life, you have the power to create it. So that means when my baby runs over to me and I'm coming with a sense of peace, I'm gentle. Pick her up gently. Like if my husband's like, ah, really, the boss was, and I'm like, I'm so sorry to hear that, sweetheart. Like, because I'm not reacting to all of the things. I got to choose how I was going to experience it. That doesn't take away from everyone else's experience. I have power to show up in that way. And it's not about controlling, I think, anybody or people, because when you are vibrational, so when you're coming in with that type of energy, it's going to be felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are going to be able to diffuse situations when you walk around in a high vibe, like when you are completely connected. Children will look at you, animals will not be afraid of you. Like you will feel it. Like you know when someone's like, you're like, who just walked in the door? Because and it's just so important to connect to the intention before you do anything at all.
Beautifully said. Yeah.
It's all equally as important to create your life experience. So, and then, and also find forgiveness if you sort of veer off of that. It's not about showing up perfect. It's about using the tools that we teach and moving them off of like that hour practice and moving them into life to create this beautiful experience, and that ripples outward. I think that's what it's really about.
Beautiful. Yeah. And what a practical, everyday aspect of manifestation or
Yeah.
creation, which for some people could be like, oh, that's too out. Oh, I'm going to manifest. It's like we're talking about everyday moments of the people you love the most in this case, and how you could even say it in quotes, manifest the best relationship. Because as long as the other person is willing to meet you where you're at, and that you can remind each other of the intention, right? Like I often say that about disagreements, say like politics, for instance, that so often what I find heartbreaking about those is how when two people might have different opinions, but they have the same goal. If you have the same intention, if you have the same goal in mind, if you have the same intention, that disagreement can actually be the most beautiful way to find the best way to get to your shared intention.
Right.
It might be that push-pull, rather than it being an argument, even if it's a disagreement, it's actually can be a constructive discussion. And I probably sound so idealistic when I'm saying this in terms of politics, but I think again that just like to finish the thought as it pertains to that is just that it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, obviously. But the point is, I think the bigger problem when people are arguing about politics, and what's most heartbreaking is when it's in the context of a family and people are being family members over bullshit that like people who don't even care about them, whatever. Again, I'm trying not to go on a tangent with that. But the idea that when we identify what the intention is, and we can coherently say, this is my intention. Do you share that intention? And the other person, the other party can say, yes, actually, I do share that intention. Okay, now let's talk about logistics because we both have the same intention. So often I think problems, whether it's personal dynamics, politics, whatever, is that people are not clear on their intention, right? Or we're not clear on our own intention, to your point. Like I'm going to walk into this house after a day at work or like being out or whatever I'm doing. I'm going to walk into this house and my intention is to have the best relationship with my kids. So that means, if I catch myself looking at the phone, put that thing away. I'm going to walk in my house. I'm going to have the best relationship with my partner. So if a partner is overwhelmed and stressed from their day and they do something a little snappy, it's not about being a doormat, like you're saying, and it's not about control. It's about saying, well, my intention, and sometimes I find I do this practically with my girlfriend, you know her well.
Yeah.
And I'll do this practically where I'll find myself, if we're disagreeing about something, like I'll say something like, I just want to make sure that I'm in the best relationship that I could possibly be in with you. And that's my goal here. That's my intention. And you're in a good position when that person, no matter where they're at, can hear you say that from your heart and can also say that I completely agree, like, and you align on the intention, right? Because it's not about being perfect all the time.
No.
It's not, because that's impossible. Like you
Right.
said, like life's real. But that's, I think, when versus if you come at that and somebody just time and time and time and time and time and time again won't meet you there, well, then maybe that's a parting.
Yes.
But yeah.
that's when we invite that sense of discernment in. Is this in alignment with what I'm wanting to experience in my life? And that maybe this is something that I no longer need to be attached to, and I need to let it go.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this, of what we get to do as creators. So,
And the one other thing I wanted to say, it relates to that, is before we go, and then I want to hear your perspective on that, and then get the last bit about what you're up to, is you had mentioned toxic positivity, which is so important, because you hear time and again in the wellness space when it's like, oh, embrace all feelings. It's like there's no wrong way to feel it. I've heard people push back on that all the time, and I definitely understand their point. And something you had mentioned about toxic positivity that I had a thought on about everything we're talking about today is when we feel, when we are unwilling to feel the discomfort, which we've been touching on throughout this whole conversation, like, again, the nose itches and you just scratch it immediately.
right.
A version of avoidance is toxic positivity, right? So if we're willing to sit with discomfort, whether that discomfort is actual pain or the pain of letting ourselves feel good, because again, it could feel very uncomfortable to let ourselves feel joy, love, everything we've been talking about. So I wonder, and again, what you said earlier made me think about how toxic positivity is just another way to avoid discomfort. But if we're
Yeah.
not just constantly being reactive, trying to avoid discomfort, because there's different ways to avoid discomfort. Someone comes at you with something and you react. Like, so say they're yelling at you, you yell back, right? We think of
Right.
that as reactivity, but also maybe our default reactivity is someone comes at us with some bullshit and then we just put on the smile, be a people pleaser. Oh, that's great. That's okay.
Hey.
Right? It's the same thing. It looks like a polar opposite reaction, but it's still a reaction because it's an unwillingness to sit with the discomfort of what's really going on here. And how do I need to sit with this, or how do I need to choose to walk away from this consciously? And so anyways, that was a great insight from what you said. A big insight for me today was, oh, like people pleasing, toxic positivity is all reactionary, just like yelling, just like, quick to anger or whatever it is. It's just, it's that same thing, an unwillingness to sit with discomfort, which is understandable for so many reasons, but all about what the self-inquiry is about.
I love that, John. I think there's just so much out there that's not like useful when it comes to positivity. And especially when it comes into like the manifesting space, like just keep saying it. Say your affirmations, say, and it'll change. But you have to believe. And if you are in that kind of a situation where it really isn't, like I was in a really bad relationship where I was continuously cheated on, and I'd be like, oh, it's okay. It's all changing. It's all changing. But inside, it was like gut wrenching. But on the outside, it was so different. Like what I was actually, it was like a complete disconnect. And it's like, no, this is really happening. Like this is real stuff that you need to address. It's not just about like pushing. There's a difference between pushing things like kind of away and just like showing up with like this brave face on. And I think that a lot of the information that we receive, or that I received during that time, was just keep being positive, just keep showing up, be a good girl, like just keep being good. And that's not the same thing as being energetically aligned. You can't trick. We're radiating our frequency, and what we're radiating is bringing our experience back to us. You can't fake it. If you want to know about your life, look at what your results are. If you want to know, what's working, what's not working, what you might want to change, just look around. Like look at your relationships, look at your life, and don't judge yourself. Use it as a way to say, that's contrast. Like use it as a way to say, okay, so this is this. Let me look at it. Let me really look at it. And what do I want to change? And what about me needs to change in order to reflect something different? I told my daughter the other day, I was like, hey, she's 23, she's so cute. And one of my daughters, I have two, but we were looking. I go, if you wanted the person in the mirror to smile, this is how simple it is. If you want the person in the mirror to smile, what do you have to do? And she's just like, what? And I'm like, what do you have to do to get the person in the mirror to smile? And she finally is just like, well, I have to smile. I'm like, exactly. So we're getting like, you're reflecting what you're doing in here. This is the inside, that's the outside. Just take a peek. No amount of words, like my mother, like, and I love her too so much. I'll just end with this, but like my mother would be like, I prayed, I've been praying, and you're crying. It's about coherence between what you're asking for and how you feel. They have to be in coherence. That creates the frequency that connects to the quantum field of infinite possibilities that then reflects that back into your life. You can't just say words.
Hmm. Beautiful. So related to that, so like I kind of a closing concept here.
Yeah.
I would love your perspective on, so what is the phrase you had mentioned, like be, do, have,
Mm.
but but we normally kind of try to do have. Wait, how does that work? Can you?
Yeah, we want to have the thing before we be the thing. So like,
Mm,
okay, so once I have my house on the beach, then I will be da da da. No, it doesn't work like that. And I can't take that away from Jim Fortin. Jim Fortin is a teacher of mine that I learned from. He came up with the be, do, have, and then I kind of do the energy work around it, surrounding it. But he, that's what it is. You have to be it first before you actually see it in your outer experience. It's the same thing that Neville Goddard will say about living in the end. So we have what we want. We have this picture, this thing in our imagination. You have to be it first. So you have to live in the end. That means you don't have to tell anybody about what you're doing. And I did this as a teacher, wanting to teach at Kripalu. As a yoga teacher, I would go into the main hall and I would stand, and I was working at the front desk, and I would stand on the podium type thing in the very, and I would imagine teaching, and I would see all the students. I had to be that first. And I would like, you have to walk through life as though it is already granted or received. So that means you have to think in the feeling, you already know. And that's how the reflection gets, that's how the reality gets, reflected back to you. It's just like we said before, everything that we have right now is old news. It's already happened. It's already been thought of. It's already been, created as a frequency. If you want anything different, it's you that needs to make that change.
mm,
It's not after you receive the thing.
mhm. And so related to that, this would be to try to kind of like think of how to practically in day-to-day actions. So you mentioned walking in, being a teacher at Kripalu. So
Mm.
you walk into the main hall, stand at the front there, and just imagine, like, look out over the thing and get the feel for it, like vision it. So in a sense, and I don't mean to throw a wrench in the order, but in a sense, is there any practical, because it might all be well and good about be, do, have, and like how to be something, but is there any sense in do, be, have, like the habit that we choose? So because again, we wake up every morning, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
and say, you want to be a Kripalu yoga teacher in the main hall,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you wake up every morning, you walk in that main hall early before anybody gets in there, you stand on the thing, and you do that every morning, whether you feel it or not. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we feel the thing. Sometimes we're full of motivation. We're full of energy. We're full of expansiveness. We're like, I got this thing. I'm doing it. And then other parties, we wake up and we're in a terrible mood. And like, like a kid breaks something, or like whatever, your traffic, like all that stuff, right? Like, because life's real. So is it about choosing certain actions or behaviors that we just do anyways, no matter what? We just do the thing, because some days when we do it, we're going to drop deeper in. Other days when we do it, it's just going to be about going through the motions, but it's proving to our unconscious that we keep showing up for ourselves. Like, I'm kind of just saying that as I go, because I'm constantly trying to figure this stuff out myself. Like, how do I keep, is that something? Like, what do you think of that?
100%. That's the
Okay.
law of inspired action. But if we don't know who we are in the beginning, we can't do the thing. What we think forms our behavior, or our what we think, forms the choices that we make. So if I am this person that's a yoga teacher, let's just use that as the example. What are the things that I have to do? Well, number one, I have to audition. I have to be brave. I have to take classes. That means I might have to get better at what I'm doing. So that means every morning I'm choosing to learn new teaching techniques. I'm, maybe teaching at another studio. Yes, absolutely, 100%. And I think that's one of the disconnects when it comes to manifesting, is that you can't just sit on your couch. You can't just sit there and imagine it. The imagination piece is so important, but you have to show up as the person. So if I'm dedicated, what does dedicated look like? I might not be as dedicated as I was before, but now, like, Now, what does dedication look like? Well, it means that every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I actually do a yoga practice. Like what actions are in alignment with the person that I have to be, and then you actually have to do them. And that's where you can find some discomfort too, because subconscious will say, no, 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 no. That's not who you are, you silly goose. You know, you don't do that. Um, and then you have to do it anyway. That's the grind you're talking about. You have to do it anyway because that's the only way that you're going to get to the have. So all of that makes such a big difference. And again, you've got the law of vibration, one of the 12 universal laws, the law of attraction. So vibration is who we are and how we show up. Attraction brings those experiences to us, but there's the law of inspired action. So when we take those, you take those moments, it might be a conversation with someone new, or maybe you're networking, or maybe you're inclined to reach out to someone via email or on Instagram or whatever it might be. It's like listening and being like, oh, this is a different pathway or something that's new that I'm going to listen to, because that guidance will be there for you. And again, that's one of the things that, as we're moving through the shapes of our life, it's really important to be quiet and to notice and to decide like what action is going to be more in alignment to where I'm wanting to go versus my old self.
Mm. And is there any science or any sort of research or anything around how long it could take, or is that just total individual variance? Like I know like a new habit takes 21 days. I've heard that, which I don't even know. I get that's a nice concept. I mean, it gives you a marker, but I'm just like, what that 21? I mean, really? Because I don't really know if that works. So I wouldn't, you know what I mean? But I was just curious if there's anything around that, or
I feel like that's so limiting, don't you? Like, I don't think it's because I think that if anything is real and true, it'll be true for everyone every time. How many people have done something for 21 days and it hasn't worked?
yeah, like you could
When
quit
you choose,
smoking and it just
yeah,
doesn't stick or something, or I don't
right.
know, like
Somebody could do it tomorrow. Like, I think that when we start placing parameters, like everything's a placebo, we
Mm,
start placing like we're putting another box on it. There's no, I could do this tomorrow. Like tomorrow, I could win $1 million if I'm that aligned.
mm,
Like, and that's what's so beautiful is that I think then we start placing more boxes and more terms and more like, okay, it's 7 days, like, uh, and I don't know that to be true. I just feel like that's just another block, because then when you get to the end of 21 days and it hasn't happened, then what?
right. Yeah.
It's like what are you pushing through to the 21 days because at the end of that, I mean, and then maybe it just does make sense that if you do something for 21 days, you've kind of created a different frequency altogether. So it just makes sense. But you can choose within each and every moment, within each and every breath of how you're going to show up in alignment with your new self. And that's the beauty. It's like no one can tell you what to do.
Beautiful. Yeah, I just thank you for saying that, because it just feels like I 21 days, 100 days, just keep showing up for yourself. Just keep showing up
Just
for
keep
yourself.
doing it. But the most important thing, and I think this is a great space to end on too, is that most people don't really know what they want.
Mm,
So if you can really, like, the number one thing is to get real clear, real super clear, because most people will be like, well, maybe I do want that relationship with this. And then they change their mind. So the universe is always going to give us what we're thinking about, and what we're wanting is just like the most generous parent. In the whole, like, just supports us in so many ways. But if you don't know what you want, you keep changing your direction, and then that's what's keeping you from experiencing it. You have to be solid. And again, like you were saying earlier, like when you were talking about goals, like know what you want, but if it shifts and changes, also know that that's okay too. On your way to the market, my way to, the market to get vegetables, I met a really cool person and now I have flowers. Like that's a beautiful experience too. So just allow some flexibility within that. Then maybe that changes a little bit as you become clearer along your path, but have an intention,
yeah.
have a sankalpa, have an intention.
Yeah, beautiful. Getting to know yourself along the way, being
Yeah.
responsive rather than
Mhm.
reactive. I mean, I think that's beautiful. And so thank you, Michelle. And is there anything, again, you're up to a lot of cool things, ways people can get in touch with you, things you got coming up, anything you want to share before we go?
Yeah, well, I've been working on something called the Quantum Identity Blueprint, which is I'm actually helping folks organize exactly based on what they want, who they need to be. So that's been really fun for me. So I've been working on that a little bit. And I've got a little book bundle coming out really soon, and that's on worthiness, like creating the frequency of worthiness. And so I work with a lot of folks on like taking what it is like they're passionate about and like putting it into the world. And a lot of things that come up for people are things that don't really belong to them, like self-sabotaging and worthiness factors and things like that are kind of preventing them from stepping into that space. And all it is a frequency. So but yeah, Instagram is where I do a lot of my stuff. So that's where you'd find out about any new things that are going on. But this blueprint has been something that I've done for a while and for myself. And I was like, why don't I just help others kind of creating their blueprint? Because it's like constructing a house. You have the foundation, and then most folks don't really know how to show up in that new energy and what that looks like. And that's even including like what you wear and how you take care of yourself. It's not just one thing. It's all of it. It's your behaviors. It's what you think. It's what you believe. And, it's like trying on this whole new identity, this whole new person. And it's really fun.
Beautiful. Thank you. And what's the Instagram handle?
At unconditionally Michelle. That just means no one can mess with my vibe, man.
Beautiful.
Staying in alignment most times.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Michelle.
Mindfulness Unscripted on YouTube and Spotify. JonOrsini.com for in-person events, Zoom sessions, and more.